there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Silver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. And we are live. Yes, we are. Marshall Silver Live Lite. Let me clarify. This is Marshall Silver Live Lite. What do I mean by that? We're not officially launched or relaunched yet. As you know, about a year ago, I went on the air 2 hours a day, gave away lots of prizes, thousands and thousands of dollars, both in cash and also in silver bars, Marshall silver bars, worth about, at this point, $400 a piece and climbing, I might add. I wanted to relaunch the show right now in light of some of the things that have gone on recently for a lot of reasons. There are many people in pain. There are many people that are suffering and many people looking for answers in their lives to what's going on. And I wanted to be able to be a voice for those people. If you are wanting to join the show, take a look at the crawl at the bottom of the screen, visit the website, click the link. It's also in the chat here. On Facebook and in the chat on most platforms. But if you're watching on Instagram or a place where the link is not in the chat, just take a look at the video. It's at the bottom. I want to talk to you about all things, sex, money, power, anything you got going on in your life. I don't want this to be a political show, although politics are certainly a part of our lives. I don't want this to be explicitly a political show. Once again, though, it just is a fact. I want this to be about the things that matter to you. Money and how do you make more of it? Relationships. How do you have healthier, better, more passionate relationships? Emotional, mental, physical, and definitely spiritual power are all the things that we're going to talk about on this show. It is your show. Dark Brandon, nice to see you again, too. Yes, we have been on the show for a while, and we've been off the air for about a year and a half. Lots went on. Off the air for about a year and a half, back on the air, coming to you live from Studio Money. This is my virtual studio inside of our 31,000 square foot facility here in Southern California. And this is a studio we call Sterling Worldwide. It's intended to be a broadcast studio, which it is. It's intended to be a place where you, if you're doing podcasts or you're doing challenges or you're virtually delivering any kind of content, you can come here and you can actually use the studio totally free. Nobody else is going to give you this offer. You've got a 3-camera shoot, professionally mixed. We've got a 24-foot LED wall behind us. We've got all the bells and whistles. So not only could you come here and host your podcast, host your broadcast, host your challenge, if you're doing a challenge to sell your products to consumers, you can do all that totally free, not a dime out of your pocket. And then you can also host your live event here too on our Prosperity Theater stage or our Maximus VIP stage. You can put your live event there at virtually no cost for that either. Why would I do all this? Because I believe in one word, and that word is velocity. The more I spread my abundance and my wealth in the world, the more the world echoes back and provides me additional wealth. And the same thing is true for you. That the velocity of your money will determine your net worth. The speed and frequency in which your money changes hands, how fast you spend it, how fast you take it back, how fast you spend it again, that is what will create wealth for you. Poor people, they think the more I hold on to money, the tighter I hold it, never a lender nor a borrower be, then I'll be wealthier. And it's a good theory. It's just not true. And the reason it's not true is what you don't sow, you can't reap. What you don't plant doesn't grow. And so, in order for you to make money or anything for that matter in your life, you're going to have to start planting at a different level. You're going to have to start loving before you experience love back. You're going to have to start spending money before you get money back. You're going to have to go do the workout before your body demonstrates the outcome of your good habits. All those things are absolutely true. Today's program, I want to talk about hypnosis. I've been pondering a lot. Obviously, we've had a lot in the news lately. Biggest piece in the news still, of course, is Charlie Kirk's assassination at the hand of a leftist monster. Initially, right when it first happened, I made a post on social media. I told you that unfortunately I stumbled upon the Charlie Kirk video of him getting shot. And if you haven't seen the video, of course, it's horrific. It's an assassination live on television, and you can see the impact of the bullet. You can see his head snap backwards. You can see his artery gushing out blood. And the moment I saw the video, the second I saw the shot, I said, he's dead. He's done. This human being isn't surviving this. And then when I talked about it on social media, I talked about the fact that it was a left-wing maniac that killed him. And I caught unending amounts of backlash from people. People saying, how in the world can you believe that it was leftist? And, it's probably some mega supporter. And I'm going, why would a mega supporter shoot a guy like Charlie Kirk, who was not only a friend of the movement, which, by the way, people say mega is a movement. That's not the movement. That's just an expression. Make America great again is just an expression, which I would think anybody that was an American would support. I would also think anybody that lived in America that wasn't an American would support, or they should go live somewhere else. That's all beside the point. When I saw that, and I said it's got to be a leftist nut job, I got no end of grief from people asking me, how in the world could you say that up front? It's because I have a brain. It's because I've got intelligence. And I think that's the thing that we have been sorely lacking for a long time. Now, I'm about to start taking your calls here live on the show, and you don't have to talk to me about what I'm talking about. You might have questions about how to turn your business into a 10 or 50 or $100 million business. I have your answers. You may be asking, how do I get my wife to love me again or even give me sex? I have the answers. You may ask, how do I make sure that my children grow up healthy? I have the answers. I've made, just so you know, if you're brand new to the show and you've never watched me before, I've made over $800 million doing what I do. I know a thing or two about making money. I created one product that in its initial year sold $120 million worth of product on a $10,000 initial investment. I have been with the love of my life, my one true wife, for the last 18 years, going on 19 years. It is the best decision I ever made in my entire life. If we are known by our fruits, meet my wife, you'll know I'm a really good person. Otherwise, there's no way this human being could be with me. Go further than that. My 3 children, Sterling, Maximus, and Prosperity, they're perfect. They are literally perfect human beings. And I'm not saying that just because I'm their father, certainly partly because, not just because I'm their father. I'm saying that because they're really good human beings, because they are a product of hypnosis. Because of what I do for a living, the media has dubbed me the greatest hypnotist of all time. Somebody asked me, what would make you the greatest hypnotist of all time? How in the world can you claim that title? And the answer is real simple. If it's by dollars earned, if it's purely judged by dollars earned, then yeah, I would be the greatest hypnotist of all time, bar none. No one's even close. We've done over $800 million selling hypnosis-related products and training programs. If it was by television appearances, bar none. I've had 5 appearances on Late Night with David Letterman. Pardon me, before Letterman went off the air. I was on the Howard Stern Show an additional 5 times. Montel Williams Show 6 times. Donnie Deutsch's Big Idea, the Sally Jesse Raphael, you name it. I was on most of the top television programs while I was making media appearances. If it's by My runs in Las Vegas, my show runs in Vegas, I headlined on the main stage of the Sahara, of the Stratosphere, of Planet Hollywood, of Paris, of the Palms, hotels, all of them. Headlined on the main stage of all of them and more. So, as far as a stage hypnotist goes, I don't know anybody that's done anything even close to that. This isn't bragging. I'm telling you this so that you have an idea of where I'm coming from in this show and what expertise I have to speak on the topic that we're all dealing with right now, and that is mass hypnosis. Mass hypnosis, because that's what's going on. When Charlie Kirk died, and I said this is likely a leftist nut job, and I got attacked for that. I understand that, yes, I was jumping to a conclusion, yet it's a fairly easy conclusion to jump to. And this is what's weird to me is that people right now, all over the place, jump to conclusions based on sound bites or fractions of what was actually said or communicated, and then get down on me for taking a look at the logical end result of what I'm observing and then judging me, again, jumping to a conclusion about me because they claim I jumped to a conclusion about a circumstance. Well, as they say, the truth sets us free and the rest is history. Turns out this was a far left nut job. That's not what today's show is all about. That's not what the topic of today's show is all about. Today's show is about hypnosis, and it's about how did we get here? And more importantly, how do we get to where we want to go? That's the question. So I want to address that. I want to start, if you're watching right now, and I realize we haven't done any promotion for this broadcast, and we don't have very many people watching. So my prayer is that you will post, share this broadcast with especially with your liberal nut job leftist friends that may not even understand how they got to the place that they got to in their mindsets, how they could believe things that a normal, healthy human being looks at and says, that's insane. That's crazy. Like there's more than two genders. Like I should hire somebody or not hire somebody because of the color of their skin, which, yes, is going on right now. Insanities like black people deserve reparations for their ancestors who may have been slaves from somebody whose ancestors may have been slave owners. All these notions that are absolutely, utterly ludicrous, insane, yet people are taking them on as if they're real, as if they have value, and if there's any substance to the foundation of that train of thought. This show is always, for any time I broadcast, guarantee you, is going to be about breaking through the hypnosis that hurts people and helping them get to the hypnosis that helps them. I'm not pro this or anti that. That's not the point of what I want to make with my contribution to your life. I want my contribution to your life to be the opposite of hypnosis. I say something a lot, and this is a way to describe my brand of hypnosis. Remember, words have no meaning. People have meaning. My semantics, the words that I choose, are simply still the words that I chose to describe my experience, which may mean that that exact same word chosen by you could mean something vastly different. And that's the valley. That is the separation that we experience ourselves in right now. Is you've got people, and I believe this, I believe that 99% of the population, both sides of whatever fence we're talking, whether it's a racial fence or a gender fence or a political fence, I believe that 99% of all people are actually really good people. I do believe, absolutely, wholeheartedly, that there's a portion of people, not just the ones that disagree with me, because should I find out I'm wrong, should I find out that I've bought into hypnosis that's faulty, I'm going to be the first one to admit it. If you and I are ever in a discussion, call it an argument, and partway through that argument, I realize you're right and I'm wrong, I promise you, I swear upon my soul, I swear upon my children's lives and my wife's life, I swear upon God as my witness. If halfway through that discussion, I realize I'm wrong, I'll shut up. I'll look at you and I'll say, you know what? Forgive me. You're right. I was wrong. I was confused. I held these beliefs before. You brought new evidence to my attention. You're right. That's what's missing right now. is people having a willingness to listen to the other side and, when appropriate, acknowledge I was wrong. Reason. That's what's been missing. So here's what I want you to ponder. I'm going to explain what hypnosis is. Before I do that, though, I want to give you a little bit of an understanding of where we are right now because it's so important. And again, I said yesterday, I went live for a little while yesterday, and I said I have felt compelled ever since I watched that video of Charlie Kirk's assassination. I have felt compelled to get back on the air. There's no money in it. I'm not selling anything, even though we do seminars and I have training programs for sale. That's not the point of me being live right now, nor yesterday, nor likely tomorrow. Meaning likely that I'll be airing tomorrow. That's not the reason I'm broadcasting right now. In fact, just the opposite. Got nothing to do with money. It costs me money to bring my producer in. It costs me money to fire up the cameras, to rent out studio money. I'm losing money being on the air right now. Here's the reason that I feel the overwhelming compulsion to be here. Not looking at financial gains, not looking at all the other benefits that may or may not be there, and I don't care. Here's why I'm here. It's not hard to hypnotize people. It's not. It's easy to hypnotize people. Here's what's hard. It's hard, challenging for sure, to bring them out of the hypnosis they're already in. The one that tells them that they can't be rich, or relationships are hard, or being healthy physically is a really difficult thing that requires you to deny yourself of the pleasures of living, that Charlie Kirk was a racist or misogynistic or a horrible human being. Those are all pieces of hypnosis that people hold that, in due respect, every last one of them, complete BS, utterly wrong, not true. Not true. People say, Charlie Kirk was a racist. He didn't believe in empathy. That's not what he said. Again, I was not a fan of Charlie Kirk's prior to last week. I wasn't against him. Like I said yesterday, we have something in common, something pretty major in common. Back in 1985, I became a hypnotist. Back in 1985, I launched a training program to teach people how to use hypnosis, subconscious reprogramming, or a technology that I eventually created called psychoneuroduplication. I created a program in 1985 called The Turning Point. And it's called The Turning Point because that's all I want people to do through my trainings is just shift their point of view. And if you shift your point of view, what happens is when you shift your point of view and you look in a different direction, it's a completely different perspective. So when you do that, what happens is you start seeing things you didn't see when you were on your myopic train of thought or the process that you had in the beginning. Nice switch there, producer guy. Way to go, Sterling. So it's not hard to hypnotize people. It's hard to bring them out of the trance that they're walking around in every single day. And that's the question. And the question that I ask people, people will come to me as the number one hypnotist in the world, and they'll say, can you hypnotize me to do this? Or can you hypnotize me to do that? Two of my favorite ones. Can you hypnotize me to overcome my past life trauma? Meaning something happened to me in a past life. I need to go back and I need to deal with that. And then this life will be better. To those people that say, can you help me deal with my past life trauma? I say, why? Do you have this one solved? Because you don't want to go back and solve that life's trauma until you figured out this one's. And this one will not be solved by solving that one. This one is solved by solving this one. That's how it works. Or someone will come to me and say some new agey geek speak thing like, oh, help me heal my inner child. And I always ask them, why, are you pregnant? Because if you're pregnant, I might be able to deal with that child. But if you're not pregnant, you got no inner child. There's nobody living inside of you. Yes, there is something wrong with your thinking. There is something wrong with your subconscious programs. There's no inner child inside of you. So the moment you let go of that nonsense, then you can deal with reality. I quit drinking alcohol about 2.5 years ago. Glad that I did. Never considered myself an alcoholic, although people around me might have, for sure, because I drank a lot. I drank all of my fair share. I drank all of your fair share. And anybody else watching this program, I drank everybody's fair share. And I liked it. I had open heart surgery a few years ago. And in July of 2023, July 12th, actually, the exact day, I realized that it just wasn't helping me anymore and that I was done. I just said, I'm done. Some things came up in my life physically, And I had high uric acid. And for those of you that aren't educated about uric acid, it creates a condition called gout. And I had this massive pain in my knees. I had torn my meniscuses playing racquetball. That wasn't all it was. I had this massive pain in my knees where it would come and go and I couldn't walk. And finally, I got a hold of, I'd been going to doctors, attempting to figure out what was going on with me. And one doctor said, "Have you had your uric acid tested?" I said, "No, because I have no idea what uric acid is. So, no, I've never had my uric acid tested." He said, "Go get it tested." Had it tested, off the charts. I asked the doctor, "What causes high uric acid?" And he said, "Well, organ meats. That's one of the major causes of high uric acid in the system." I said, "What else?" And he said, "Alcohol." I said, "Seriously?" Done. Not a drop. Never again. And haven't had a drop since. Um, it was that piece of hypnosis inside of me that thought I needed or wanted even alcohol in my life that I had for 60 years. One new notion, one new piece of advice, and my entire reality changed. One new piece of advice, one new notion, one new idea. And instantly I said, "I'm done." I loved my tequila, loved it. I loved my fine white burgundies, loved them. No desire, none, gone. Because if the challenge between experiencing the pain that I felt when I had the gout in my knees, as opposed to having a glass of, a margarita or a glass of wine, there's no comparison. That's not even a choice that I need to even think about. I never want to feel that pain caused by that thing again. No matter what, done. That's where we've gotten to right now. We've gotten to a point where I get it. I understand. While I don't agree with people on the far left, I understand how they got there. Barack Obama, back in 2011, rescinded something called Smith-Muntz. You need to do some research on this. Go check it out. Smith-Muntz. Smith-Muntz was the law that disallowed the use of propaganda against U.S. citizens. In other words, the news had to be accurate. Trump talks a lot about fake news, fake news, fake news, and people give him grief about that he's making stuff up. He's not making anything up. The news, NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Fox News, I don't care what side of the aisle the information or content is on, they're not required to tell you the truth anymore, nor podcasts and broadcasts like this that frankly aren't held back, reined in, or regulated at all. We don't need to tell you the truth. I could be flat out lying to you about all this. Do your own research. That's the point. Come out of your own hypnosis. Find your own facts. So he rescinded Smith-Muntz so that the media could propagize, lie to you, use propaganda against you. That is what happened starting in the election of 2016, is that the propaganda that Trump was colluding with Russia was allowed to be broadcast to the point where regular, what I call normies, not people on the far left, not people on the far right, those people that are the 80% in the middle, the normies all started hearing daily on sources that they used to believe they could count on for the truth that Trump was colluding with Russia, and therefore Trump is not to be trusted. You know, what's really interesting to me is that part of the challenge for people is figuring out what's real and what's not real. And the challenge is, write this down. If you're taking notes, by the way, write this down. This is really important. Reality is created by validation. If I present to you enough pieces of validation to support a particular reality, you are likely to accept it as reality, because reality is created by validation. So does that mean that if I, as a hypnotist, can present to you enough pieces of information that you can accept as real or logical or sensible, if I can create enough pieces of information that allow you to accept something as true, even when it's not, will you accept it as true? The answer is absolutely. Overwhelmingly, yes. That's how we've gotten to where we are. So let me back up even further and give you a basic explanation, definition of what hypnosis is. I already told you it's not hard to hypnotize people. I have hypnotized millions of people in the course of my career, both live, in person, one-on-one, and through my training programs, books, tapes, and videos. Not hard to hypnotize people, hard to unhypnotize them. Get rid of those programs that are faulty in their brains, the ones that just don't work. So here is your definition of hypnosis. A practical definition of hypnosis is the non-critical acceptance of ideas or concepts on a subconscious basis. Yes, I'll repeat that. Hypnosis is the non-critical acceptance of ideas or concepts on a subconscious basis. In layman's terms, one person says something, another person non-critically, without judgment, believes it to be true, and then more importantly, acts upon it as if it's true. That's hypnosis. Let me go further down this rabbit hole, confuse you even more. Ultimately, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. What do I mean by that? All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. All things we believe to be true, we chose to be true. We decided it was an appropriate behavior, an appropriate belief, and we acted upon it. And that action upon it is the most important part. You can hold a belief, you can hold a truth, you can hold something in your head. It never materializes. It never becomes physical until you act upon that information. I say something to myself, I believe it to be true, I act upon it as if it is true, then it's my truth. That's hypnosis. I have no desire to drink alcohol. That is a fact. That is my truth. Had you asked me on any day prior to July 12th of 2023, would you like a margarita? I likely would have said absolutely, make it a double. So my truth prior to that new piece of information that shifted me, changed my entire reality, was that alcohol wasn't harmful, that it was okay. Some is all right. It's never impacted my work. I've never been on stage or lectured or taught or performed with any amount of alcohol in my system. It's not bad for me. Well, all the time, a reasonable person, somebody thinking with logic or a little bit of intelligence, would never be able to accept the idea that alcohol is good. Alcohol is poison. That's what it is. It has no other reason other than to alter your clear thinking. It's not the taste. You can get things that taste the same as alcohol content products. You can get near beer, you can get wine, and people will argue it's not the same. It doesn't taste. I get it. You're probably not going to be able to find a high that's the same as crack cocaine, other than crack cocaine. You're not going to be able to find a buzz as good as a needle in your arm filled with heroin. You're not going to be able to find that buzz unless it's heroin or crack cocaine or crystal meth. I get it, but that's the point. Maybe the distinction that has to be made isn't that you can't find something that tastes as good as alcohol. It's, why do you want to taste something as good as alcohol with a cost as high as alcohol? And I don't care if you drink. If you drink, God bless you. Enjoy every single sip. I mean that. I really do mean that. Enjoy every single sip until you don't, until it gets in the way in some way. And at level 60, I think I was 60 or 61 when I quit drinking. At level 60, I realized that this is taking years off your life, and you love your wife and you love your children. And even if it only takes a day off your life, it's too expensive. It costs too much. So hypnosis is the non-critical acceptance of ideas or concepts on a subconscious basis. One person says something, another person believes it to be true, and then more importantly, acts upon it as if it's true. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I say something to myself, I believe it to be true, I act upon it as if it's true. That's self-hypnosis. So how did we get here? Barack Obama rescinds Smith-Muntz back in 2011, says no longer have to tell the truth. News, you can say whatever you want to say. You don't have to back it up. Just, you're okay. Do whatever you want to do. That's only part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is these major media outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC, even Fox News, and all these social media platforms, including the one you're likely watching this broadcast on right now. They were given not only permission to and relinquished from any responsibility. That's the big part. They're not responsible for what they say, even if it's a lie. They were relinquished from responsibility, allowed to say whatever they want, but there was more than that. And there's more than that going on still. It is clear, massive amounts of evidence completely revealed that the deep state, what we don't want to talk about, Voldemort of the government, the deep state not only controls media, controls what they say, is an echo chamber for the Democratic, the far left message. It's in cahoots. It's biased. And if you don't think it's biased, you're biased. You're just not paying attention. I could despise somebody. I could despise a concept. Yet if every single piece of news coming from a particular place holds the frame that is exactly what I think it is, then I know it's probably not true, because nothing is black and white as far as information is concerned. It's always gray. So the hypnosis coming from the far left machine, big tech, mainstream media, the information coming on a consistent basis, this barrage of evidence to create this manufactured reality, is impossible for most people to ignore. I mean, if I said the same thing to you every single day, and I had everybody around you screaming it in your ear and telling you, it was a certain way, in exhaustion, you would eventually just say, fine, I agree with you. I believe you. Yes, it's this way, just to get along. Don't believe me? Why are people still wearing masks when the manufacturers themselves said it? Even if COVID was a reality, which it was not, even if COVID had been a reality, it said on the box, the masks don't work. Never in the history of the United States have we had a time when drug manufacturers were relinquished from their responsibility of putting out drugs that had serious, consequential, even deathly side effects, like the creators of the vaccines, particularly the COVID vaccines, have been absolved from any responsibility from the deaths caused by said vaccines. We've never had a time where people were confused about gender. And again, I'll say it right now. I am not seeking to change anybody's mind. I don't care what you believe. All I know is trust the science, like you say. Trust the science. Because, yes, reality is created by validation. And as long as you're open-minded, you'll find the truth. But here is what I think just happened. And here's why I think we're in a really good place. A really good place, actually. I believe that the truth shall set us free. And I remember back when I was watching the 2020 election going on, and all of us were there, no matter who you voted for, it doesn't matter. We were all there. At 10 o'clock at night, I went to bed knowing Donald Trump was going to be reelected and was going to have a second term as president of the United States. He was so far ahead in so many of the swing states, it wasn't a question. I woke up in the morning, and obviously he had lost. Those swing states flipped. In the ensuing days and weeks and months, I saw evidence of trucks pulling up to Cobo Hall in Michigan at 3 a.m., walking through the back door when the back door had never been used all night. Video of this with boxes, legal boxes, marked on the boxes, votes for Joe Biden. Coming in the back door, all already sorted 100% votes for Joe Biden that flipped Michigan. We saw on video Ruby Freeman and her daughter running the elections in Atlanta. And we saw they claimed there was a burst pipe and that everything had to be shut down and everybody needed to go home. But Ruby and her daughter and a couple of other associates, they didn't go home. They pulled boxes, suitcases actually, completely incongruous with how all of the other votes were delivered. They pulled suitcases out from underneath a table. You have to ask, why were votes in suitcases under a table? Why were they there at all? What would motivate somebody to put the votes in a suitcase and then hide the suitcases under the table? And then we watched on video. Security cam they didn't know was running. We watched on video all of those votes being run through the machine repeatedly, not once, not twice, up to 5 times. And Joe Biden miraculously wins Georgia by 11,000 votes. We saw it. So my point in all this is we saw that reality. We saw all of that going on. It doesn't change things. It certainly does not. That, the evidence was the machines and all the tallies came out that Joe Biden was our president. It's become clear now. It has to be clear to people that didn't want to look at it, didn't want to believe, because that's the hardest part. Cognitive dissonance. I don't want to believe the country that I love is crooked. I don't want to believe that my government has become a crime syndicate that, for the most part, is only there to enrich itself, not to protect the citizenry, myself, my wife, my kids, my friends, my extended family. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe my government loves me, that my president cares about me, that my representatives are really there to represent me and what me and the majority of my neighbors also believe. It's just not true anymore. It's just not a fact. But here's what I believe. Communication equals wealth, and yes, the truth shall set us free. So here's where we are. We're at a place where the internet and deep fakes and all that is both a blessing and a curse. It's both a blessing in that communication equals wealth, and the sooner that I can know truth, the better I can choose. But it's also a curse, and here's the curse. Much of what's on the internet is fake. It's just not real. It's made up. There's memes made up, and people will say Charlie Kirk's a racist. He called somebody a chink. He doesn't want to fly on a jet with black pilots. He's misogynistic. He hates gays. He's against transgenders. All the above, which, by the way, all those things I just mentioned are untrue. They're not true. They're sound bites completely twisted out of context. And I can show you the sound bites where those originated from. That's the hypnosis, isn't it? And so ultimately, the hypnosis is your choice. And so here's the lesson that I want you to have today. And then I want to expand upon how we got here. Here's the lesson. When people come to my events, Turning Point in particular, that I've been teaching for 40 years, over 1.2 million people in the course of 40 years have gone through Turning Point. When I bring people to Turning Point, one of the major questions I ask them is, here's hypnosis. So what's the opposite of hypnosis? It's objective reality, a term that I use to describe the unemotional, non-critical observation of a circumstance. A guy walks up to me, he starts screaming things, Charlie Kirk's the devil, Donald Trump is the Antichrist. And we're all you're evil personified, Marshall Silver. Those are all occurrences. Now, I could take offense to that, and I could rear up and pull fists or knives or guns. I could do any of those things. I could. Or I could, as a reasonable, intelligent human being, look at this person who's spewing what I know to be falsehoods, what I know to be untruths. Charlie Kirk is not misogynist. Donald Trump is not the Antichrist. I know those are not true. And this person spewing this at me, you're a demon, Marshall Silver. I know that's not true for sure. I'm Marshall Silver. That's how I know that's not true. And I can look at that person, and instead of putting up fists or trying to defend my position, realize the truth is they're idiots. They have the brain of an infant, not even a toddler, not even a child, of somebody that doesn't think. They're literally just being programmed. Like I said, this is impromptu. We're not back on the air. We're not producing these episodes. This is just me chatting. And I pray something I'm saying is making sense to you. I pray it adds value. And if it's not adding any value, yeah, just scroll on. Take a look at somebody's lunch or another picture of a cat. But I'm praying that this is making sense to you, because the question is, how did we get here? How did we get to a place where so many things that 10 years ago you would have said, no way, couldn't happen, that's insane. We're here, though. 10 years ago, if I had said men are going to dress up as women and they're going to compete in women's sports and you're going to be okay with that, you'd have looked at me and said, there's no way I'm going to be okay with that. How could that be okay? They're not women. They're men dressed up as women. They're not actually women. No, they can't compete in sports. If I had said to you 10 years ago, a guy's going to come into your daughter's locker room and he's going to have a penis because that's what men have. And he's going to undress in front of your daughter and he's going to claim that he's a woman. Even though he has a penis, he's going to claim that he's a woman and your daughter needs to be okay with that. And you're going to support that. You'd have looked at me like I was nuts. If I had said to you 10 years ago, somebody's going to be murdered, cold-blooded execution in front of thousands and thousands of people. They're going to put a bullet through this guy's neck. And some of your friends, people that you love, people that you know, people that you even respected previously, they're going to celebrate it. They're going to laugh. They're going to dance. They're going to, do funny little things on the internet. They're going to create memes and T-shirts and the most horrific and disgusting of things. They're going to celebrate this innocent man's death, regardless of his opinion. His opinion is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. I said yesterday, if Barack Obama or Joe Biden, two people I definitely don't agree with, got assassinated, and I don't want that. If they did, though, I wouldn't celebrate it. I wouldn't even as a human be happy about it. I'd be unhappy with the fact that we live in a society where that occurrence could happen. I'm not going to celebrate it because that's not my reality. That's not my truth. That's not my hypnosis. So now we come to the question, how did we get here? And this is where this is the important part of my time with you today. At least what I pray is the part where you actually pay attention. How do we get here? Well, it's easy to understand people holding ridiculous thoughts, ideologies, truths. The earth is flat or, just stupid stuff that there's no point even having a discussion with people like that. So how did we get to a point where a fairly large portion of the population holds these beliefs that we've got to fight for men that want to pretend they're women? We've got to let them come and play volleyball with our daughters, even though they're 3 times the size and 5 times as strong. We've got to, let people block the freeway for their just cause and not mow them down because I'm trying to run my wife or my son to the hospital for urgent care. We've got to let them protest and cover up the freeway. No, we don't. No, we don't. Not anymore. We're coming to a time, I believe, a turning point. And again, like I said, I launched Turning Point in 1985. Charlie Kirk wasn't even born. And so anybody wondering who came up with that word, that phrase, that name first, probably someone before me, except I started using it in 1985. Turning Point is designed to make you look in a different direction, to see the possibilities there. And 100%, that's what Charlie Kirk was doing. Here's what's going to happen right now. We're at a turning point. Very few people, even though he was widely popular, and certainly more people knew about Charlie Kirk than most other individuals, but relatively speaking, very few people in the world knew, let alone cared, who Charlie Kirk is or was. Nobody cared. It just wasn't that significant. But Charlie gets murdered, assassinated by a far left-wing nut job. No other explanation, no other description of who this human being is. And unfortunately, left-wing nut jobs are the base of the current Democratic Party. This isn't calling you a left-wing nut job if you're a Democrat. That's the base of your party, though. That is the foundation. That is, if you ask a person that is nonpartisan, neither Republican nor Democrat, if you ask them to describe a Democrat to you and they're nonpartisan, they'll describe the left-wing nut job. So if you don't like that, do something about it. There's a term that's being hashtagged lately. It's black fatigue. And the notion is that people are tired of seeing videos of black people behaving badly. I didn't say it. It's a hashtag that's trending right now, black fatigue. I agree with the concept that there is a culture of people, black people, 13% of the U.S. population, that unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't want to get to the reason yet, for whatever reason, is disproportionately represented in these videos at the very least. There's no arguing that. If I was a black man or a black woman and I saw that going on, I would speak out. I would. If I saw that shaved-headed guys consistently acted like neo-Nazis, nasty, rude, narcissist people, I would speak out against shaved-headed people behaving that way because I'm a shaved-headed person. I would. How did we get here? How did we get to the place where shaved-headed guys don't speak out against Nazis, where upstanding black citizens don't speak out against black people in bad behavior, where gays, and again, the most beautiful thing I saw come out of what's happening with Charlie Kirk is a lot of gay people wanting to distance themselves from the gender dysphoria of transgenderism. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. Really smart, really healthy, really good. They're different. Transgenderism is mental illness. Being gay is a preference of who you love. That's all that is. 100% acceptable. I support it 1000% because if you find love once in your lifetime, you're among the chosen few. But how did we get to here? How did we get to a place where this kind of unrest is going on and these 10 percenters think it's an appropriate behavior to dance on the grave of a righteous human being that simply wanted to talk? And they're angry at Charlie Kirk for voicing his opinion. They're angry that they're getting fired for dancing on his grave, but they weren't angry when people got fired for calling a guy just because he was dressed in a skirt and asked to be called a woman. They were quite okay with people getting fired for that. You got to ask yourself, what is this double standard? Here's the movement. Here's what's going to happen. Mark my words, it's a good thing. I believe in God. And in due respect, Charlie Kirk has made me more of a Christian than I was prior to his death by living a life that truly, in my opinion, is an example of what we should all live. Did he have opinions? He did. Do I agree with everything that he held as his positions? I don't. It doesn't matter. I don't have to, but I agree with his position of having discourse, of having conversations that aren't bigoted, that aren't attacking somebody else, that says, no, let them speak. I want to understand. That's this show. Not political, not gender specific, about everything. I want to help you. I want to help you become somebody new. I believe what we've got going on right now, though, is going to be magic. And here's why I think it's going to be magic. I talked earlier about the normies, people that aren't far left and aren't far right. And they're the ones that normally never even engage in those kinds of conversations. They don't talk about it because they're normies. All they want to do is keep their head down, keep their business to themselves, go do their job, collect their paycheck, feed their family, take care of their kids and their wife, their husbands. That's all they wanted to do. They don't want to be involved in this nonsense. Some people might call them conservative. I wouldn't, because they fall on both sides of issues, both Democratic platforms and Republican platforms. So I don't think they're conservatives. I think they're normies. They're the general pop. But here's what's happened. The general pop, and I wouldn't say I was far right at all. I would certainly say that I'm far more central and in my viewpoints and in my beliefs of letting people live. And as long as they're not harming anybody else, leave them alone. But here's what I think is happening. I think that a lot of people had no idea who Charlie Kirk was, that they didn't care. It wasn't on their radar. They had no reason to think about Turning Point USA or whatever Charlie was speaking about in his debates on campuses. They had no reason to pay attention. Yet this stranger gets assassinated, and there's a big to-do about it. There's some people that are crying and they're, sick to their stomach and they're lamenting. And there's other people. Hold on a second. Let me adjust the weight on my microphone. Hold on. And there are other people that are dancing on his grave and that they're excited about the fact that he died. And, he deserved what he got. And he was this horrible human being. And his wife deserves to die, too. And his kids should be given up for adoption so they can be raised in a better family where they won't know what gender they are. And they'll be messed up for life because they're given drugs before they're 18 years old that they couldn't consent to. They didn't know who Charlie was. So what did they do when all this to-do was raised about Charlie Kirk? They went online. They started watching Charlie's videos. They started not only watching his videos, they started listening to what was actually being said and not what was being spewed by some of their friends. That I promise you, these normies, they were shocked, not that somebody was celebrating the death of a particular person. They were shocked their friends were celebrating somebody's death, period. Anybody's death. Hate them, love them. You don't celebrate death. You just don't celebrate murder. And especially you don't celebrate murder against somebody who's not committed crimes. None. Zero. There's no crime that anybody could specify that Charlie Kirk committed. Hitler committed crimes. Stalin committed crimes against humanity. Charlie Kirk, not so much. But you got these normies, they're looking at these videos with Charlie Kirk doing his very best. And I haven't found a video where he wasn't. Doing his very best to civilly debate people, to actually listen to their opinions and just ask them, why do you hold this opinion? What is it that you've been presented with? What evidence have you received that I have not that led you to this conclusion? Help me understand. That's healthy. That's good. That's what we've all got to do, including me. And I admit it. I acknowledge it. I have not been great at this at times. There have been times when I've jumped down somebody's throat because they're so stupid. I admit it. I've done it. And I also acknowledge on this show right now that I am committed to listening better. I am committed to being more understanding of somebody having a position that I cannot relate to nor understand, yet understanding that they could have the position because of their understandings. Here's what's happening. These normies, they're watching these videos and they're saying, gosh, it's not so far off of what I believe. In fact, it's exactly what I believe. I believe there's only two genders. I believe that DEI is racist and that people should never be hired simply because of the color of their skin. Either way, not either way, not for the race that I'm a part of, nor the race that I'm not a part of. Nobody should be hired for their skin. These normies are watching these videos and they're realizing that they identify with Charlie Kirk, and their friend that they've loved and they've known forever is saying, I'm so glad that guy died. He deserved everything he got. His wife should die too, so those children aren't raised in an environment where they'll learn these hateful thoughts and such. And you know what they're thinking? They're thinking, my God, that's Charlie Kirk holds many, if not all, the beliefs that I hold. And you guys are celebrating his death, and they're asking themselves, would you celebrate my death? Would you be happy if your friend died? Because I hold his same beliefs. I don't talk about him a lot because, when we talk about stuff like that, we end up getting into a fight. And I don't want to get into a fight with you. I like you. You're my friend. I want to have a meal with you. I want to play pool with you. I want to go walk on the beach with you. Now their friends are revealing themselves because the truth always reveals itself. You cannot hide the truth. It always reveals itself. If not blatantly and bluntly, it reveals itself in the fruit. It reveals itself in your behaviors. It reveals itself in how you treat a waiter. It reveals itself in how you speak to your children when there's nobody else around. It reveals itself when you make comments online. Yes, I am guilty of at times becoming livid with insanity that I see online. And I'll tell you, I don't think I was always this way. I became this way after I started having children. I know it. And for them, and here's what's interesting. There was a woman on our private beach the other day, and she was sitting on a bench that's on my private beach, and then there's stairs down to the public beach. And my son and I were going to go for a walk on the beach, and we walked down, and these two ladies were sitting on the bench. And they were sitting there, and I said, hello, ladies, can I help you? They said, oh, no, you can't help us. I said, well, this is a private beach. And she says, what, the beach is private? I said, yes, where you are is a private beach right now. Well, and she started arguing with me about it was a private beach. And I said, ma'am, it's a private beach. So I'm asking you, please leave. This is not your property. This is my backyard. Please leave. And I started off being polite. And she started to escalate, and she got nasty. I'm with my son, and I want to protect my son. And so all I'm thinking is, don't let her escalate this. Rein it back in. Let her know that you're willing to escalate if she is, and maybe both of you should not. And I said, ma'am, you just need to leave. And then she continued to get nasty and really nasty. And all my son and I were doing, we're coming down the stairs to go for a walk. And she was just getting nasty with me. And I escalated. I did. She started screaming at me, I'm calling the police on you. I pulled out my phone because we came down to walk down the beach. So she's walking down the beach in the same direction we're going. And now she's yelling, oh, you're following me. And I'm going, no, we plan to go for a walk down the beach. That's what we're doing. So we go for a walk down the beach and we come back and we're in the house. And a few minutes later, there's a knock on the door. It's the police. They said, sir, were you harassing this person? Were you stalking this woman? I said, no, let me explain what happened. She was on my private beach. I nicely at first asked her to leave. And as she escalated, I escalated too and said, get off my beach. Just go away, lady. Go away. I said, that's what happened. He said, yeah, it seems suspicious. She seemed out of control. I said, she was. She said, well, he said, did you stalk her? I said, no, we were going down to the beach to go for a walk. And this woman kept walking, but she kept spewing things. So I kept videotaping her. That's where we've gotten to. That's where we are now. The police just shook his head. He said, I'm very sorry for bothering you. And you know what else is he going to do? That's where we are right now. We are dealing with people that are insane and their behavior needs to be exposed. Their hatefulness needs to be brought to light because when the hatefulness is brought to light, guess what's going to happen? You'll get to choose what side of the fence you're on. Are you on the side that spews hate and exaggerates things and makes things up? Or are you on the side like Charlie Kirk that asks for evidence, that asks for people to back up their position? Test this out. Next time somebody is spewing hate online, next time you go to a location and there's protesters and they're protesting something, just do this. Someone says Trump's a Nazi. Just ask them. I understand that's how you feel. What makes you feel that way? Oh, everything he does. Everything he does. Not some of the things he does. No, everything he does. So he's a Nazi in how he raises his children. Yes, he's raising his kids as Nazis. Okay. How is he raising his kids as Nazis? Can you give me an example? Is he killing anybody that's Jewish? Because that's what the Nazis did. Well, no, he doesn't hate Jews. He hates other people. Okay. Is he killing anybody? Because that's what Nazis did. The answer, of course, is no. They can't come up to it. He's a fascist. Ask them what a fascist is. I guarantee you, 9 out of 10, or even better, won't be able to even tell you what a fascist is while they're calling somebody else a fascist. Let me help you out, by the way. Little bonus, no extra charge. Here's what a fascist is. A fascist is someone who does not let somebody else hold a differing or opposing view to the point that they will commit violence against that person to ensure that the other person is not able to hold the opposing view or act in a way that is contrary to how they think they should act. That's a fascist. I don't know. I think killing somebody for holding an opposing view is a fascist in fascism. I think screaming at people, sitting in the middle of the freeway, telling them you need to hold my beliefs, you need to pause your entire day, even if you're racing your loved one to the hospital, you need to listen to me because, damn it, what I believe is more important than what you believe and what you need to do in your life today and in this moment. That's fascism. Ordering me to hire somebody, not based upon their competency, yet based upon the color of their skin or their gender or any other element that's got nothing to do with the thing that I'm hiring for, the competency for the position I'm hiring for. That's fascism. We got to get back to telling the truth. That's what we got to get back to. We got to get back to telling the truth. We got to get back to not just telling the truth, we got to get back to asking for the truth. So like I said, when someone's behaving badly near you, that's all you got to do. They make a claim, just ask them to back it up. Well, Trump's a bigot. Okay, can you give me some examples? Well, Trump said, grab her by the private parts. Yeah, that's the one that comes up a lot. You know that Trump said he had locker room talk. He was talking to somebody. He thought it was a private conversation. It was not. It was being illegally recorded, by the way. You're not allowed to record somebody without their knowledge on audio. It's illegal in the location where that recording was made. That's beside the point. It's illegal. But he was having locker room talk with another guy and in what he thought was a locker room talk circumstance. Convict me then. Convict pretty much all my guy friends, the ones that aren't gay, convict pretty much all of them because pretty much all of them have said something like that about a woman at some point or another. Some woman with large breasts bends over and some guy looks over and his buddy looks over at him. They look back at each other. They both know what they're thinking. And one of them says, hubba, hubba. Should I be judged for that? Or should it be acknowledged that I'm a man and I'm looking at a woman? And that's what men do. That's really what we do. Thank God we do that because otherwise you wouldn't be here. If some man hadn't looked at some woman in that way, you wouldn't be here. Well, that woman was my mother. Even more disgusting, I guess. Show me a man that's never made that kind of a comment ever, and I'll either show you somebody that is so uptight and so tightly wound up that they're going to have challenges later on, or I'll show you a man that actually likes women. Because a guy that likes women makes those kinds of comments. So when they make those comments, just say, give me an example. Don't show me a meme. Don't even show me an article to substantiate your claims that this person is this way. And I'm not talking about just one way. I'm not talking about just the right trying to protect and defend itself. I'm talking about both ways. If you are a conservative and you say something, be prepared to back it up. And I don't just mean back it up with an opinion or a far right piece of media that can substantiate and validate your position. No, go to the source. If you're making a claim Barack Obama said something, by God, you better show the video. And it better be easily identified as real and not deep fake. Show me the video. If you're going to make a claim about Biden saying a certain thing, by gosh, yes, I'm going to ask you, show me the video. I'm not going to just take your word because it's an opinion that I favor or something that I want. I'm going to ask the hypnotic question, give me validation. Show me the proof. And even then, I'm still going to watch it with an open mind and make sure that it's in context. That's it. So nobody's called in. I'm cool with that. It's unusual. Usually I get somebody calling in. And one thing you won't see me do is clickbait you. I'm not going to espouse an opinion knowing that it's going to get viewers or followers, or I won't clickbait you. I will tell the truth. And my brand of truth is different than Charlie's. Charlie was a devout Christian, and I am not. I love God deeply. And yes, if somebody were to ask me my ideologies, I would certainly slant toward Christianity and might even, if somebody pushed me, say, yes, I'm a Christian. I don't understand and haven't come to terms with all of the truths. And I won't even say, all of the story, because I don't want to diminish. I don't want to diminish it. I haven't come to terms with all of the evidence that is presented to me by people that would hold an opinion either way, on either side. So I don't have an opinion on that. So just as we get what we ask for, I asked for somebody to talk to, and Lord knows I got someone to talk to. Adam Walker, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. How's life?
Hey, Marshall, how are you?
I am always awesome.
So good to see you. We're excited to see you this upcoming week at Turning Point.
Yeah, Turning Point's going to be amazing. You're up in Alberta right now.
That's right, Alberta. That's where we're at. So I had
hold on. Let me just point something out. You said that with a little bit of disdain just now. I acknowledge it. So Alberta's going through its own particular kind of hypnosis right now, isn't it?
We are 100%. We're on the verge of becoming hopefully our own province and our own country. Hopefully,
yes. The 51st state you joked about last time we chatted.
The 51st state would be more than awesome. That would be fantastic if we could do that.
And here's why, because for those that know Canada in the last administration and certainly this administration is far left. Trudeau was far left. Carney's far left. It's far left. And Alberta, what a lot of people don't know, subsidizes financially the majority of Canada. Is this accurate?
100%. I think we subsidize at least 3/4 of the country's income from oil and gas and just our natural resources.
And yet Alberta's positions are fairly conservative relative to the rest of the country, and the opinions and positions of many people that live in Alberta are not reflected by what's being forced upon them in general media, mainstream media, and everything else going on in Canada. Is that also accurate?
Correct. Yeah, we are very, very far right compared to the rest of the country. We see ourselves as the Texas of Canada, so we're very far right, and don't have the same views and ideologies as what the Canadian culture portrays.
So before we jump into whatever your question was or whatever you called me to talk about, um, I obviously have a lot of friends, including yourself, that are Canadian. And I don't think that tariffs are an attack against another country. I think tariffs are ideally designed to balance trade so that nobody has a benefit over somebody else. And if people actually looked into tariffs and understood what the intention of tariffs were, they'd realize that Trump's not trying to attack any other country or trying to make anybody kowtow to us. In fact, from the beginning, his position and his promise was tariffs that are even, tariffs
Yep.
that are commensurate to whatever we're being tariffed back and forth. And ultimately that would mean no tariffs would be the most ideal for the general population. That means the governments would have to find their revenue elsewhere, and the consumers wouldn't have to pay that extra money while their governments seek funding for whatever they're doing. Do you
Correct.
believe that most people in Canada feel the same way, or do most people in Canada feel like Trump's attacking them by placing tariffs upon anything coming in from Canada?
No, the Canadian people see tariffs as a massive attack and as an allied um, country that we are allied with, doing that as an attack, and that if we were so close and brothers per se, why would another country do that? And they see Trump as attacking our country, and even when he made the joke of the 51st state, they also saw it as an attack. The Canadian people just see Trump as an attack. The Albertans, a lot of Albertans, see what Trump's doing and understand the thing that the media doesn't show, like you just said, that we have tariffs on the states for other products that we've had for tens and 20 tens of years that no one brings up. But as soon as Trump puts a tariff on steel or whatever it may be, there's a massive uproar because that's what the media's putting out,
Focused
and
on.
they don't understand. Yeah, they don't understand that if we took off our tariffs on other things, Trump would probably do the same thing, like you said, to make that equal trading ground, that equal opportunity to trade on both sides fairly.
And I would agree with that. That again, people bring things out of context. Ultimately, what would be best for all of us, for all citizens of the world, is for tariffs to be eliminated, and that
Yep.
transactional taxes, when people do a transaction, that it's only taxed on transactions. But I also think that, like I thought it was interesting the way that you framed that. You said Canadians feel this way, but Albertans feel this way, and you're
Yep.
already separating the two. And I would agree. As you know, live in Las Vegas. We have a home also in Southern California, and Nevada is not any less Democrat blue state than California is. But the thing is that it's turning, it's changing, and more people, I believe, in California realize that we are not this left leaning state anymore. Not even by a margin. We are quite conservative, like Alberta is. Family first. We care about the fact that people get good health care, that they get good answers on the things that they need to deal with, and that we're treated fairly. But
Yep.
besides all that, I want to make sure that we can get to your question. You're in your car, you're driving. Obviously, it was important enough for you to call from your car. What's on your mind?
So right now, it's a super important question for my business and my wife Anna and I. We're building an awesome team within our very successful landscape company up here in Canada, in Alberta, and we're trying to build an awesome team, and we've started doing that, and we have an awesome base. We have a few missing parts to our management and to some of our employees that we're still seeking out to hire. A question that I had for you, Marshall, was how, with building a team, I've never been an employee. I've always owned my own business. I am an entrepreneur from the age of 14. I've never worked for someone else in my life. So I have sometimes a struggle, a challenge having empathy towards employees and employee mindset. So what I wanted to ask is how do I better have empathy towards our employees to be able to continue to build an awesome team that can run our business, take it to the next levels, and so forth.
I think there's two elements in dealing with employees, teammates, we like to call them. I think there's
Yep.
two things that have to be considered. One, you're not them, except you are the biggest thing in their life. And I think that that's the piece that a lot of employers don't consider, is that if I hire somebody and they give me 8 hours a day of their time, then I am the biggest portion of their life. I certainly, well, they sleep, that doesn't count because they're sleeping. But certainly they spend more time with me and on my matters than they spend on their own life and their own life's matters. So that's the first step in being empathetic, is realizing that you are their life. And if they give this much of their life to you, then they're giving it, it's a marriage. It really is. Here's the other part. Here's the empathy part. And I think that, again, it's very timely that you should be asking this question. If an employee shows up consistently late, as an example, if they keep coming to work late, the question that most people would ask is, why are you late? Why do you come in late every single day? What's it, why? If you ask an employee why they do something, if you ask anybody why they do something, especially if it's a behavior that you don't agree with or want, they will come up with a brand new excuse every single day. So asking why will get you stuck in this endless loop that there's no end to. So stop asking them why. Start asking them what or how. What do I need to do to inspire you to get to work on time? How do I help you understand that you not showing up to work on time eventually will lead to you not having your job? And if that's the outcome you're seeking, just tell me that now so that we can nip it in the bud and I can let you go. You can go find a job you don't want to be late to. Because ideally, that's what we want to create. Hiring employees is a persuasion process. And what we want to do is we want to create an environment, a culture that they want to be a part of, regardless of whether there's any work to be done or not. When we can make what we do fun, when we can make what we do the thing that they would choose to do over the other stuff, then we know we're on the right track. I used to read books all the time, Adam, back in the 80s and early 90s when Apple and Microsoft and these major companies were born. And I would always be fascinated by the stories from Steve Jobs or even Bill Gates of people that would get on a project that had a due date. They had to get a software or a platform or a new product done by a certain date, and that they would camp out at their desks for weeks at a time. They would literally sleep in a sleeping bag under their desk. They would eat pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they would never leave, all because of the cause. And I think that is, when we think about our businesses and we think about the culture of what we do, that is the key. That is the thing that makes people do more. As you know, I have a very small team. I have very few teammates in my organization, and they are massively loyal to me. They watch out for me. They think about things that I'm not necessarily thinking about. They cover for me in ways that I'm not necessarily even thinking I need to be covered with. That's the thing that we've got to do. And then the second part of that is I know what it feels like sometimes to think that, my God, they just get it wrong every single time. They fall short every time I put them on a task. I've got to come in. I've got to fix it. I've got to redo it. That's true. And that's always going to be true. They're likely only going to perform at half the level you perform at. Because if they performed at the level that you perform at, guess what?
They'd be me.
They'd be you. And they wouldn't work for you. They'd be you, so they'd own the company. So that's
Exactly.
the irony, is that there are employees that can perform as good as you. The thing is, they don't need you. So they're not going to work for you. So what we've got to do is surrender to the idea that I'm not going to hire anybody that's as good as me in any of the tasks that I could do. Certainly there's things, that I might not know about. I might not know about AI or technology or certain things. I'm going to hire people that are way better than me for those things. But on a regular basis, on an entrepreneurial level, having a degree of concern or a level of responsibility that an owner has, you're not going to hire those people. They're not hireable. They don't want to work for anybody else. And so what you're going to do is you're going to hire somebody that's half as good as you. And when you're smart, you're going to hire 3 of those people, because now you've got 3 people that are half as good as you. So you are 50% ahead of you. And that's the surrender. The surrender is, yes, be empathetic to the idea that they're not you. They'll never see things the way that you see it. I love my children very much, except they're 14, 12, and 10. They're not as wise as me. I have discussions sometimes with my kids, and there are times when I know they don't agree with me. I know they're not getting my point, and I realize in that moment they probably won't. Yet all I do is I leave the seed there, and I let it just get some root. Have them ponder it, because eventually, as long as you're on course, they will carry that flame for you. And then finally, here's the reason that I think that those folks that slept underneath their desks for Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, here's what I think it is I think that we all want to find someone that knows where they're going and ask them to take us along. So I think that as an entrepreneur, as a leader inside of your organization, your job is to carry the vision. Even if you plan not to be there, your job is to clearly define the mission or the vision of where the company is wanting to go or needing to go or is going. You've got to be able to clearly communicate that vision to them so that every of those other needs, all those other things that you're asking of them, show up on time, do more than you're paid for, upsell, and, find these other opportunities for the company, that they do those things naturally and with pride. My son Sterling is producing my show. He's 14. Already asking me questions about, how can we increase the quality of the show when we launch this completely? Can you tell me early enough so that I can search out videos that have to do with the topic, and I can, recreate lower thirds, and I can do this or I can do that? Because he's got pride in what he does, not because I'm telling him, go make the show better. He's saying, no, you keep mentioning my name, Dad. And if any of my friends watch the show, I want them to know that we're doing a good job here. And so I think that that's the best thing that we can do to help motivate and inspire our team, is to give them the bigger reason that we want things to be better, and then give them the recognition when it goes well. Look what they did. Look at the amazing thing that they did.
100%. I love that. Thank you, Marshall.
You are very welcome. And I'm looking forward to seeing you and your beautiful bride in a week. In a week at Turning Point. In fact, a week from today. So safe travels. God bless. We love you, Canada. We love our Canadian friends. We'll let our governments work out how to make it all make sense. Yet I know I speak for 99% of the population of the United States when we say, yes, Canada is our brother. They are our friends. And all we're looking for is mutual respect both ways, and respectful people understand that. God bless you, and I'll see you 100%. Next week.
God bless. Thank you.
It's a good life. It is a great life, and I'm glad that you took the time to invest a little bit of time with me. This is Marshall Silver Live Lite, and what that means is we are not in full rollout. I just felt an overwhelming need to get on the air and answer questions. Just like Adam called me in and asked questions today, you call in and ask questions. All you got to do, click the link when we're doing the show live, and you can chat with me. That about wraps up my time today. Before we go, I want to leave you with a little prayer. Dear God, let everybody who's watching this show right now recognize there's nothing about them that's broken, therefore nothing about them that can nor needs to be fixed. Dear God, I pray that every single person would have greater compassion, understanding, and patience for the other people around them that may be going through challenging times that they might not even recognize they're going through. Dear God, I say this prayer out loud with my eyes open, because that's how you operate. You operate in the open and in clarity, and I want I want you to know that, number one, I love you, God, and I pray that you would give direction and guidance both to me, to my family, and to anybody that might stumble upon this content to, yes, listen more. And although I don't necessarily agree with Charlie Kirk's definition of the term empathy, I ask that, yes, we would seek to see the world through someone else's eyes, to know them best we can, even though we can never fully know them, that we would at least seek to understand how they could come to a point of view that might be against ours. Dear God, I pray that you would protect everybody as they travel, help everybody that might be struggling financially find the unlimited prosperity and abundance that you have for all of us, and that you would help anybody that might be dealing right now with any kind of physical challenges, that you would allow them to know that you do not create mistakes, that the healing that they seek is happening as we speak, and it is so supernatural that there'll only be one thing that we can do, and that is to give you credit for the blessings of our lives. I ask these things in your name, God. I know you show up in a lot of different names and a lot of different ways. All I can say is thank you for showing up, and amen. God bless you, folks. You are loved. I am grateful for you, and I'm grateful that even though it was an intimate crowd today, that we got a chance to spend a little bit of time together. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. God bless. If tomorrow all the things